Pwede na ba to?
Pwede na yan. Yung totoo, pwede na nga ba? Choose mediocrity. Mediocrity is a personal choice. Kahit na hirap ka na, sumusunod ka na lang. We suck it up kasi it's the familiar path. Okay na yan, mababayaran ka naman basta matapos. Wala kang mapapatunayan hanggang ma-recognize ka na. Have you ever caught yourself saying pwede na or settling for something just because you feel that it's easier or you just want to get it over with? It's something many of us Filipinos do, but have you ever wondered why? Is it just a habit? Is there more to it? Is it a mindset unique to us or is it a universal struggle? Or mindset nga ba talaga to? Una sa lahat, are we mediocre on purpose? Okay, let's get real. Sometimes it feels like we're mediocre on purpose, right? Or minsan nakala natin na mediocre tayo dahil sa katamaran or mindset ba? Mindset. The truth is, it's complex and honestly, a bit frustrating. Yung mindset na ito in Filipino culture influenced by our colonial past and the need for survival is not just a lack of effort. It's a survival tactic in many ways. The scarcity of resources and the pressures of everyday life have conditioned us to prioritize completion over excellence. That said, meron akong napansin na common misconceptions about mediocrity. Let's look at 3 of them. Misconception number 1. Mediocrity is the same as imperfection. Mediocrity is not the same as imperfection. Imperfection is a natural part of the learning process and can lead to growth and development. Mediocrity, on the other hand, is the acceptance of subpar performance and the lack of effort to improve. Misconception number 2. Mediocrity is a result of laziness. While laziness can contribute to mediocrity, it's not the only factor. Other factors such as fear of failure, lack of motivation, lack of resources can also contribute to mediocrity. Misconception number 3. Mediocrity is a personal choice. While choosing to settle for mediocrity is a personal choice, it's important to note that several external factors can also contribute to mediocrity. These factors include cultural and societal norms, lack of opportunities, and again, lack of resources. So let's talk about 5 examples of cultural and societal norms na pwedeng pinanggagalingan ng mediocrity. Number 1, lack of emphasis on critical thinking. In Filipino culture, there's a tendency to accept things at face value without questioning them. Perhaps it's historical. 400 years ba naman tayo under the rule of colonists? Nowadays, ilang beses tayo umuo sa mga memorandum or mga bagong set of rules sa workplace natin, kahit na hirap ka na, sumusunod ka na lang. But we never asked why or what could be done better. Bakit? Minsan, it's because hindi natin alam kung anong pwedeng alternative or the thought of looking at other options is exhausting or ayaw lang natin mapahiya. Of course, meron talaga yung idea ng familiarity. Kahit na nagdurusa na tayo sa isang proseso, we suck it up kasi it's the familiar path. Kahit di natin gusto, ito kasi yung familiar. The thought of exploring other paths na pwedeng mas maging maginhawa yung buhay natin, usually we look at it as risky. In school, we're also taught to memorize things instead of understanding them or thinking deeper about concepts. Most of the time, dapat sakto yung proseso. Hindi tayo nabibigyan ng chance to look at other ways to solve a problem. Which leads me to my next point, which is fear of failure. We tend to avoid taking risks and prefer to stick to what we know to avoid failure. But if we look at the fear of failure more closely, maraming times na hindi lang ito mindset issue. It's also a circumstance issue. Para sa iba sa atin, ang failure is not an option kasi ang masasacrifice natin is food on the table or a roof over our head. Whether we like it or not, the truth is people who have access to better resources have bigger rooms for failing, which also connects to my next point, which is number 3, lack of resources and opportunities. Filipinos who lack access to education, training, and other resources may not have the means to pursue excellence. Those who have less resources, kakayanin lang na isolve muna kung ano yung nasa harap nila na pagsubok. Yung diskarte sa kakainin, sa pangrenta, pang-tuition ng mga bata, pang-hospital ni nanay o ni tatay. The lack of resources lead people to focus on the essentials, leaving no room na mapursige yung mga pangarap nila. Number 4, colonial mentality. The influence of colonialism in Filipino culture has led to a preference for Western standards and practices over local ones. Ang tendency is that we don't always have a preference for our own local stuff. So parang hindi natin na-appreciate yung talent ng sariling atin until magkaroon ng isang Pinoy ng recognition abroad. Sa sarili nating bansa, minsan yung kapwa pa nating Pilipino ang mapanghusga. So there are Filipinos who are incredibly talented but unfortunately remain hidden gems. Kasi ang kalaban, banyaga. Ang preference, banyaga. Kahit anong galing mo, wala kang mapapatunayan hanggang ma-recognize ka ng... Which leads me to my final point, number 5, crab mentality. Crab mentality is a cultural trait where individuals try to pull down those who are succeeding instead of supporting them. If nanggaling ang isang tao sa isang environment full of crabs, nai-ingrain sa kanya yung fear of putting himself out there and exploring his potential. Ang nangyayari, naiisip niya na kahit anong gawin niya, he will never amount to anything or he'll never be good enough in his pursuits. When circumstances are like that, it's hard to see a life that goes beyond pwede na. This is why if we do have the means to encourage others, extend assistance and access, I kind of feel like we have a moral responsibility to lift others up who are not as fortunate as we are. It doesn't mean that we're forcing people to do the uncomfortable. It means that we're showing them possibilities, we're extending access to information, and encouraging them to choose the life that they feel good about. We need to make the other paths familiar para lang may makonsider sila beyond what they usually know. Oo, madaling sabihin, hindi madaling gawin. Now, here's the thing. If we are to look at those who choose mediocrity, meaning you have the resources pero andun ka pa rin sa pwede na mode of living, dun na iiba ang usapan. If we're deliberately choosing mediocrity, it's not just us who suffer. Lalo na if you're an entrepreneur, for example. I once hired some marketers in the early days of my business who overpromised on their marketing and had that pwede na at least matapos attitude towards work. There was no initiative, there was no monitoring and troubleshooting. Yung mga ginagawang work is subpar. There was no inclination to improve. Ang ending, mas nag-waste pa kami ng time, ng resources, and we ended up doing everything ourselves. We never worked with them again, we never recommended them to anyone. So, ano naging resulta? Affected yung business and reputation nila, pero affected din kami. The worst part, they're proudly teaching other people how they create things fast nang hindi na pinag-iisipan, and all of these narratives snowball into one big mess. All because someone said, okay na yan, mababayaran ka naman basta matapos. Ang lungkot, diba? What kind of creative economy will we have with this mindset? Para sa akin kasi, sayang. If we start pulling each other up, mas maganda sana. Pag sinabi nating pull each other up, it doesn't always mean being nice and encouraging in all things. It also means calling out subpar work. It means not recommending someone even if they're not doing their job right dahil relative o kaibigan mo siya. It means holding someone accountable when they mess up. It means giving tough love to our local market and not just supporting local because it's local. If we want to uplift the Filipino creative, we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. When we make ourselves more valuable, we're able to expand our resources. And when we expand our resources, we're also able to lift other people up and out of unfortunate circumstances and shed light on new paths that will enable their potential. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Are we mediocre on purpose? Is the pwede na attitude something that we can fight against at this point in our culture? Drop a comment below and give me some insights because I'd love to learn more from your thoughts too. And if you found this video helpful, consider sharing it and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and as always, be brave, create.